Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good morning. It is 6:07. News Talk 105.9 WMAL. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. You know my voice. It's a happy Friday. I'm Patrice Onwuka, and I am filling in for Larry. Big shoes to fill, but I'm trying my best, and I've got a great friend here, Hans von Spakovsky, to help me do it.
Good morning, Patrice. And by the way, you're much better looking than Larry O'Connor.
Don't tell Larry that. Well, we're excited to have you, Hans, all morning long. At 6:35, we're going to have one of your colleagues, Zack Smith from Heritage Foundation. He's a senior legal fellow there. He's going to be talking to us about the election cases. At 7:05, Tony Schaefer, former Grand Marshal and board member of the National Veterans Parade Foundation. Then at 7:35, Bram Weinstein's going to be here to preview this weekend's Commanders game. At 8:05, Governor Kristi Noem is going to be here from South Dakota. She'll be talking about a big party coming up into this year or next year. And then at 8:35, Brett Baer will round us out from Fox News Channel. Hans, happy Friday, first off. It is wonderful to have you. We talked a lot. We kicked off talking about just the election results. And to give everybody just a quick update, if you want to know where everything stands right now, President Trump has won the Electoral College. We just learned that Arizona was called this morning.
Oh, Nevada.
Sorry, Nevada. Thank you. Nevada was called this morning.
Three more Electoral College votes.
Three more Electoral College votes, which puts him well over. Obviously, he's won the Electoral College there. On the Senate side, we have Republicans who have 53 votes in the Senate, so they are control of the House. We're still waiting for, I guess, one more than Senate race there. And then the House is still up in the air. Democrats have 198 seats. Republicans have 210. And so Republicans need 8 more seats to win. So that's just the update to get everybody on the same page about where we're at right now. All right, Hans. So we talked a lot about the election results. I want you to get into the legal issues. I think one of the most saddening and, frankly, exhausting parts of the past 3 years, I would say, has been the warfare, the lawfare against President Trump. Everything from district attorneys in random states I guess they're not a random swing states, but to, across the country, we have seen just the mobilization of prosecutors to try to take President Trump down. Let's go case by case and talk about what you're seeing with these cases, what you're expecting the outcomes to be. But before we get case by case, just what's your overall view of all of these, of lawfare against President Trump?
Well, it is a unprecedented, unfortunate development because it makes us look like, frankly, the kind of third world countries in which the government uses the legal system against their political opponent. And that's clearly what this was. By the way, I need to correct myself. Nevada is 6 Electoral College votes.
6, gotcha.
Not 3. I was thinking about Alaska, which also was late in getting called.
Okay, so 6. So that brings our total, President Trump's total, to 301. So he's at 301, but
correct.
Yes.
I've never seen this kind of abuse of the legal system for these kind of purposes. Now, there was one prior incident, and that was, you may recall, when the Justice Department prosecuted former Alaska Senator Ted Stevens. Remember, it was about a decade ago.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember this, but they convicted him right before the election, caused him to lose the election, and then it turned out that these DOJ prosecutors, they had all acted in unethical, unprofessional manners to the point where the judge overturned the conviction.
My goodness.
Does that sound familiar?
It does. I think it's a precursor to what we can expect to see with some of these cases.
That's right.
All right, so let's get into some of the cases. Let's start off why don't we start off in New York? President Trump is expected to be, he's already been convicted. This is I won't call it the hush money, I'm going to call it the NDA case with Stormy Daniels. And he potentially could be sentenced within the next few weeks. There's a sentencing hearing coming up. What are you expecting with this case?
This is a case brought by Alvin Bragg, who, as you know, is one of the Soros-supported rogue prosecutors who came into office saying, misdemeanors? Well, we're not going to prosecute those anymore in New York. And felonies? Well, most of those were also not going to prosecute. This was very much a political case. He claimed a violation of federal finance, campaign finance law. Well, I used to be on the FEC, and I can tell you there was no violation of federal campaign finance law.
Wow.
So this was a wrongful prosecution. It was clearly a biased jury. The case ought to be dismissed by the judge. The judge ought to throw it out despite, but we have a very also biased judge, and I doubt that he is going to do that. In fact, he might try to sentence the president to prison time. Now, the Secret Service should and can object to that because they can't protect the president.
Of course,
if he's in prison. It ought to be dismissed, but New York. Who knows what this judge is going to do?
Would it be possible for Mershon to sentence him to time served, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he could. Or he could put him on probation or something like that. I think the case ought to be outright dismissed. And frankly, it tells you something about this Justice Department. The Justice Department should have gotten into that case and said to the judge, Alvin Bragg, he has no authority to prosecute what he's claiming is a federal crime.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that.
Well, okay, so obviously the timeline doesn't work for a new head of the Justice Department to step in, one that's appointed by President Trump to step in here. So, yeah, we're not going to hold our breath for anything happening right now. But that said, let's move to some of the federal cases. Jack Smith has already said that he's going to try and wrap up these cases before the end of the year. We heard from one of our guests yesterday that maybe it's not so much that he doesn't want to lose, but that he's getting pressure from the upper echelons, and we're talking about from the White House.
He's sunk, and the reason he's sunk is a couple of things. First, it is longtime policy of the Justice Department, where I used to work.
Yes,
that you cannot prosecute a sitting president. So the cases ought to be dropped. That also would save him embarrassment because, remember, in the case down in Florida, right, under the Espionage Act of all things.
The classified documents case.
Remember, the judge down there already said, you were illegally appointed, Jack Smith.
That's right.
And that's on appeal. And if they simply drop the case, well, then the appeal also would go away. And both of those cases are entirely hampered by the fact that, remember, the U.S. Supreme Court said presidential immunity for official acts. And official acts are all throughout both of those cases. I don't know how they can somehow filter those out. So that the federal cases, I think, are basically, there's nothing else to them.
We're going to get into a few more cases, but big picture, President Trump has said he's not vowing retribution. But in this case, when you have people who are wrongly convicted, wrongly prosecuted, what would you suggest the remedy be to that person? Would it be to sue the government?
Well, he's saying no retribution, but when you have prosecutors, for example, the Justice Department, who abuse their authority, who engage in political persecution, they need to be terminated. Yeah. That's not retribution. That's doing the best things in the interest of justice.
I hope people hear that and recognize that, because that is exactly what they're going to say when he gets into office and fires a lot of people. All right, Hans von Spakovsky. We have more to talk about on these cases. We'll hit a few more cases after the break, but it is 6:15. Let us throw to Jamie Whitten. And Hans, I think you have a special thing to say.
I just want to thank Jamie personally. She has saved me. I listen to the show every morning. Her reports have saved me from getting into so many traffic jams over the years that Jamie, I got to thank you for that.
Oh, hey, it's my pleasure. That's what I'm here for. And, I think you're bringing us good luck on the roads this morning, really.
All right, so Hans von Spakovsky, our electoral guru from Heritage Foundation. Let's keep up with some of these cases against President Trump. Let's go down to Georgia, because I also know that you have intimate knowledge about Georgia, the legal system down there.
Well, no, I used to be on the election board in Fulton County in Atlanta, and I'm still licensed to practice law down there. That case that Fannie Willis has prosecuted, that also is sunk. Now, it's not gone yet, but it will be for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Court of Appeals down there is there's a hearing scheduled on December 5th.
Oh, wow.
Because defendants in that case appealed the lower court decision. Remember, the lower court said, well, Fannie, either you or Nathan have to leave. You can't both be on the case.
Yes.
So Nathan left. But the defendants appealed and said, look, Fannie Willis's behavior was also so unethical, so unprofessional, that she also should be excused from the case.
Wow.
And if the Court of Appeals agrees with that, then she's gone. And let me tell you, there's no other DA
willing to take this on.
Who would file this political case, because that's what it was. But also, she's affected by the presidential immunity case decision of the Supreme Court. Because, again, if you look at her indictment, which unfortunately I was forced to read, it's filled, again, with all these official acts that President Trump did, which she claims were illegal. And so, again, I just don't see how even a new DA could possibly save that case.
Well, you've gone through the litany of cases. The bottom line seems to be that all of these cases will fall apart and be exposed for the political lawfare that they were to try and keep President Trump from winning. And I said this yesterday. I think that the Trump mugshot was one of the first injections of energy into the electorate to say what is being done to this man is wrong. He has got my support. And we've just seen case after case after case come try to stop him and then collapse. And so, I'm looking forward to all the egg on the faces of all of these prosecutors who brought these cases, Hans.
Oh, I agree, but I also think there need to be ethical complaints filed against them with state bar associations for what they've done.
I hope those bar associations are listening. Let's talk a little bit about what is expected in the Trump administration from a policy standpoint.
Right.
We are hearing, and I've already seen the stories, I'm sure folks have as well, on the evening news, the families that are scared of mass deportation. Talk to us about what the mass deportation would look like from a legal standpoint, because I'm sure that there are a lot of immigration groups on the left that are readying their lawsuits against the Trump administration if he were to enact this.
Yeah, but look, their number one priority is going to be getting the murderers, rapists, and people like that, aliens like that, out of the country. The number of criminals that this administration let into the country is just outrageous, and we've seen the results of that. The other thing that I think is going to happen is I think they're going to take steps to cause people to self-deport.
Oh, interesting.
That is a crucial part of this because, look, DHS obviously doesn't have the resources to get rid of huge numbers. They've got the resources to go after the most dangerous aliens, and there's a lot of them in this country. But there are steps that can also be taken that will cause people to start self-deporting, and one of the most basic ones is, as you know, the Biden administration has been giving work permits.
Yes.
To aliens who are here illegally,
Yes.
which that violates immigration law. Just canceling all those work permits so that all the employers out there know, we can't employ this alien, therefore they can't earn money, and they can't do the main reason they're all here. Why are they? To send remittances back to their
Home
families
countries.
in their home countries. And if
Yeah.
they can't do that, there's no point in them staying, and I think you'll see large numbers self-deport.
So interestingly, we're seeing some initial numbers from the current officials in the at ICE right now. We're seeing reporting here, and this is in CNN. The average cost of apprehending, detaining, processing, and removing one undocumented immigrant from the United States in 2016 was a little under $11,000. So they're making the argument that detention and deportation would be very costly, and I think you just recognize that it would be costly to do so. But President Trump is saying that there is a way to do it where it wouldn't be there would be no price tag for his mass deportation plan. I think you were hinting at that when you were talking about kind of self-selection and self-deportation.
Yeah, and that was just one of the many ways that you can do that. Look, the other thing people need to understand is, and that's why some of these numbers are not right.
Yeah.
I think there's now something like over 1.5 million unenforced deportation orders sitting
Really?
at DHS.
Wow.
So all the costs of having immigration hearing,
Yes.
that's already been done.
Mm.
These are orders from an immigration judge that would allow DHS the moment
Yes.
they find an illegal alien to put them on a plane and send them back to their country.
Yeah.
And just taking care of all those unenforced deportation orders, again, that's one of the first things they can and should do.
I 100% agree with you. I'm a naturalized citizen. I was born in another country, and I recognize that illegal immigration, particularly when you have people who are dangerous, committing crimes, violent crimes,
Right.
it needs to be a day one priority. And I think President Trump was elected with a mandate to
He
do
did.
so as well. So we're going to continue talking about this and some of the other priorities of the Trump administration, the next one coming around. I'm here. This is Patrice Onwuka with Hans von Spakovsky. I'm going to get it right.
No, you've been getting it
I've
right.
been getting it
That
right.
is, hey, you're doing great.
Excellent. I've got a last name that that can be a tongue twister too. So, all right, it is 624 WMAL.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 637 WMAL News Talk 105.9. There you go. Good. Happy Friday, everybody. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. You know this is my usual voice, Fridays, Patrice Onwuka, and I'm filling in for Larry, but I'm here with a great special co-host, Hans von Spakovsky of the Heritage Foundation. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Patrice. And like I said, thanks for having me in studio with you.
Absolutely. We've been chopping it up behind the scenes between breaks, and we're getting your expertise on air on so much of the elections that have just happened, the outcomes and the legal cases. And we'll be joined in just a couple of minutes by one of your colleagues. But at 7:05, we've got Tony Schaefer, former Grand Marshal and board member of the National Veterans Parade Foundation. 7:35, Bram Weinstein's going to preview this weekend's Commanders game. At 8:05, Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota will be joining us. And at 8:35, Brett Baer, anchor of Special Report for Fox News, will round out our Friday morning show. All right, Hans, let's welcome in your colleague, Zack Smith. He is a senior legal fellow and manager of the Supreme Court and Appellate Advocacy Program at Heritage Foundation. Good morning, Zack.
Well, good morning, Patrice. Thanks for having me on the show this morning.
Absolutely. We have been getting so much insight from your colleague, Hans, next to me. I'm going to turn a lot of this over to him. I know he's got lots of good, sharp questions for you. But I just want to kick it off and just talk about the losses against progressive George Soros-backed DAs. I mean, was this week's election results? Could it have been any clearer that the American people are rejecting George Soros DAs and their progressive radical policies?
No, it couldn't have been clearer, and it was a good night for the rule of law, for those who care about making sure our communities are safe. This election night sent a clear message that is what voters want. Now, you mentioned George Gascon in Los Angeles. He was one of our nation's most progressive district attorneys. He implemented a host of policies, not prosecuting misdemeanors, not seeking the death penalty, seeking to re-sentence a number of violent offenders. And the voters, even in left-leaning Los Angeles, sent a message that they don't want those soft on-crime policies anymore. And Nate Hochman, who is going to replace George Gascon as the new district attorney there in Los Angeles County, has pledged, and he ran on the fact that he would actually reverse a number of George Gascon's very problematic policies.
Yeah, Zach, I was astonished. I guess I shouldn't be at the numbers. I mean, Gascon not only lost the election, he lost badly. I mean, he was just stomped by voters. What was it? It was like almost 70% of voters voted against him and in favor of a guy running as an independent, but a former Republican in Los Angeles County. I mean, that was quite something.
Yeah. No, it is, Hans. You're absolutely right. Look, in the primary, 70% of voters voted for someone other than George Gascon when Democratic voters in L.A. went to the polls. But over the past several weeks, we've seen this loss coming. George Gascon was running 20 to 25 points behind Nate Hochman in many of the polls that came out. And keep in mind as well, Hans, that California voters writ large sent a message that they don't want these soft on crime policies. They voted for something called Proposition 36. This is a statewide law that Gavin Newsom, he opposed, but it would essentially impose enhanced penalties for people who commit certain crimes, for certain repeat offenders, and make clear that if you go into stores, you steal, you commit crimes, that there are going to be harsher penalties for committing those same crimes time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, part of it was Patrice. I think that he wouldn't. This guy Gascon, and frankly, all these other, they like shoplifting. They wouldn't prosecute the cases, and folks wonder now why we keep seeing these stories of these hordes of people going into stores and stealing them blind, which leads to major outlets closing their stores, particularly in urban areas where people don't have a lot of choices. And why is that? Well, because these DAs say, well, we're just not going to prosecute those cases.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Hans. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because so many on the left have bought into this idea that there are certain so-called quality of life crimes that cannot be prosecuted and supposedly not have any effect on their communities. They say things like shoplifting, which you mentioned, things like prostitution, things like simple possession of drugs, and common sense tells us, and we've seen that, of course, those crimes need to be prosecuted, or their communities were suffering. So thankfully, not only did George Gascon get kicked out of office in Los Angeles, Kim Foxx in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois, she said she's not running for re-election. The Democratic candidate who replaced her has pledged to be harsher on crime than Kim Foxx was. We'll have to wait and see whether that happened. And then in Tampa, Florida, Andrew Warren, the rogue prosecutor in Tampa, Florida, who Ron DeSantis removed from office, he was running to get his old job back. And thankfully, the voters there in Tampa said, no, we're not having those soft on crime policies come back here in our Tampa Bay area.
We're speaking right now with Zack Smith, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and manager of the Supreme Court and Appellate Advocacy Program there. You know, Zack, one of the other pieces of this is what prosecutors are, who they are choosing to prosecute. We have right now this case against Cully Stimson. Folks remember in New York City, he was, I believe, was he a Green Beret? He was a former or current member of the Armed Services. He was on a train, crazy, mentally disturbed passengers, was harassing and even threatening other passengers, and he stepped in to protect the women, to protect the people there. And unfortunately, while he was kind of apprehending this guy, this homeless person, the homeless person lost his life. And we're seeing here, Alvin Bragg decides to prosecute Cully Stimson.
Well, not Cully's our colleague.
Oh, really?
Cully Stimson. You get the name wrong.
I think I have the name wrong. Sorry about that, folks.
I think, Patrice, you're talking about Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny.
Yes, I apologize, folks.
That's right. Cully Stimson and I, we wrote our book on rogue prosecutors, how radical Soros lawyers are destroying America. And we have an entire chapter where we talk about George Gascon, we talk about Kim Foxx in Chicago, and we have an entire chapter talking about Alvin Bragg in Manhattan. And I think that name, Alvin Bragg, of course, most of your listeners know that name. That's the rogue Manhattan DA who prosecuted Donald Trump on a number of very questionable charges. That's also the DA who is pursuing the case against Daniel Penny. And so you're absolutely right. Look at the cases that are being brought. Look at the cases that are not being brought. And unfortunately, I'll think it becomes clear that many of these prosecutors aren't really interested in doing justice. They're more interested in pushing their own rogue, radical agenda that at the end of the day fundamentally makes our communities less safe.
Yeah, they see themselves as public defenders, not prosecutors. By the way, Alvin Bragg, I'm sure, would love to prosecute Cully Stimson, your co-author, because of the stuff you guys have written about him.
Well, please apologize to Cully. I meant Daniel Penny, Marine veteran. But, thank you so much, Zack, for joining us today. I'm sure we're going to have you back to talk about this case and more. Zack Smith from the Heritage Foundation. It is 6:45, WMAL Traffic and Weather, every 10 minutes, first on the fives. Here's Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Traffic is brought to you by Jiffy Lube.
WMAL, making sense of the roads, because traffic doesn't always follow the pattern. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Hans, it is time to celebrate. We are going to be celebrating our nation's 250th birthday, really the anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So President Trump has announced something really big and special. I'll get your feedback on the other side of this clip. Let's play cut one, please, Michael.
The United States will celebrate the biggest and most important milestone in our country's history. 250 years of American independence. What a great country. And we have to keep it that way. But that's why, as a nation, we should be preparing for a most spectacular birthday party. We want to make it the best of all time. Here is my plan to give America's founding in 1776 the incredible anniversary it truly deserves. On day one, I will convene a White House task force called Salute to America 250. It will be responsible for coordinating with state and local governments to ensure not just one day of celebration, but an entire year of festivities across the nation, starting on Memorial Day 2025 and continuing through July 4th, 2026. Second, I will work with all 50 governors, Republican and Democrat alike, to create the Great American State Fair, a unique one-year exhibition featuring pavilions from all 50 states. It'll be something. Cool. The Great American State Fair will showcase the glory of every state in the Union, promote pride in our history, and put forth innovative visions for America's future. My hope is that the amazing people of Iowa will work with my administration to open up the legendary Iowa State Fairgrounds to host the Great American State Fair and welcome.
All right, excellent. So we've just heard from President Trump what he's planning. Hans, what are you going to wear?
I want to try to find a Uncle Sam outfit that I can wear. That's what I want to do. And thank goodness it's going to be Donald Trump as president when we're celebrating this.
Yes.
Because I'm afraid that if it had been on the other side, we would be having apologists for the existence of the U.S. That would be their main theme, instead of celebrating this great bastion of freedom.
We would be reminded for 365 days how racist, irredeemably racist America is, how misogynistic, how sexist, how go down the line it would be. No, I 100% agree with you. Thank God President Trump is leading this effort, and I can't wait for the Democratic governors to see what they bring to the table. They better not bring the DEI woke stuff to the table in celebration, but folks, get ready. The celebrations will probably be coming to your doorstep. I think every house should put out an American flag over the next year.
Oh, I agree. And for Virginians, they should recall in March, it'll be the 250th anniversary of Patrick Henry's famous speech, "Give me liberty or give me death."
Lots of history. All right. Well, we will continue the history talk. We'll continue the post-election wrap up and the legal issues that President Trump is seeing collapse right in front of him. You're hearing me, Patrice Onwuka. This is Hans von Spakovsky in for Larry O'Connor. It is O'Connor and Company at 6:53.